Keanu Reeves sat at a corner booth in a small McDonald's, enjoying a quiet moment with a simple meal. He had always preferred these unassuming places, somewhere he could blend in, away from the bright lights and flashing cameras. It was late evening, and the restaurant was buzzing with the usual fast food crowd, families grabbing dinner, teenagers laughing over fries, and workers stopping by for a quick bite after a long shift. At a nearby table, a young mother sat with her 5-year-old son. She looked tired, her eyes darting toward the entrance every so often, as if she were expecting someone, or perhaps fearing them. Her son, a small boy with messy brown hair and big eyes, poked at his Happy Meal toy but kept sneaking glances at Keanu. He seemed to recognize him, but there was something else in his gaze, something more than just the excitement of seeing a famous face. Keanu smiled at the boy, giving him a small nod. That was all the encouragement he needed. Slowly, the child slid off his chair and walked toward Keanu's table. He hesitated for a moment before gently tugging on the actor's sleeve. "Excuse me, mister," the boy whispered. Keanu leaned down so he could hear him better. "What's up, little man?" he asked kindly. The boy looked around, checking to make sure no one else was listening. His little hands were trembling. When he finally spoke, his voice was so soft that Keanu almost missed it. "My mommy is in danger," the child whispered. "The bad man is coming back soon." Keanu's smile faded instantly. He sat up straighter, his heart pounding just a little faster. "Who's the bad man?" he asked gently, not wanting to scare the child. The boy swallowed hard, his wide eyes filled with fear. He turned his head toward his mother, who was now gripping her hands together tightly, her knuckles turning white. "It's my dad," the boy finally admitted. "And he said, he's bringing a gun." For the first time in a long while, Keanu Reeves felt his blood run cold. Keanu sat frozen for a split second, but his instincts kicked in fast. His easygoing demeanor was replaced by quiet intensity. He looked down at the boy, who was clutching the edge of his jacket like a lifeline. The child had the kind of fear in his eyes that no child should ever have to experience. Keeping his voice steady, Keanu asked, "When did he say that?" The boy hesitated, his lips quivering. "On the phone. Mommy told him not to come, but he said he was already on his way." Keanu glanced at the mother. She had heard every word but remained frozen in place. Her shoulders were hunched, her breathing shallow. She had been expecting this. Keanu acted quickly. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. He kept his voice calm but firm. "Hi, this is Keanu Reeves. I'm at McDonald's on Sunset Boulevard. A woman and her child are in danger, domestic violence situation. The suspect may be armed. Send officers now." As soon as he ended the call, he turned back to the mother. "Ma'am, we need to get you and your son somewhere safe." The woman's eyes darted to the door, then back to Keanu. "He'll be here any second," she whispered, her voice shaky. Keanu didn't hesitate. He stood up, gently guiding her and the boy toward the back exit. "Stay close to me," he said. "We'll step outside before." The doors swung open violently. A tall, angry man stormed inside. His face was twisted with rage, his fists clenched. His eyes locked onto the mother and child instantly. "There you are," the man snarled, stepping forward. His movements were aggressive, his presence suffocating. The entire restaurant fell silent. Keanu immediately stepped in front of the mother and child, shielding them. His stance was casual, but his muscles were tense, ready. "Hey, man," Keanu said evenly. "Let's take a breath. No one wants trouble." The man sneered, his eyes flicking over Keanu with annoyance. "Stay out of this, Hollywood." Keanu remained unmoved. He knew this kind of man. He had seen that look before, the kind of anger that didn't care who got hurt. Then, the man reached for his jacket pocket. Keanu didn't wait to see what he was pulling out. The moment the man's hand went toward his jacket pocket, Keanu acted instantly. His body moved on instinct, years of training kicking in. He stepped forward, closing the distance between them before the man could fully react. His hand snapped out like lightning, grabbing the man's wrist before he could reach whatever was inside his pocket. "Don't," Keanu said, his voice calm but firm, his grip like steel. The man's eyes widened in shock. He hadn't expected resistance, let alone from Keanu Reeves. He tried to yank his arm away, but Keanu didn't let go. "Let me go. You," the man started, his face twisted in rage. "Not happening." Keanu's grip tightened, his stance solid. He wasn't just an actor. He had trained in martial arts for years, judo, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and weapons combat for his movies. He knew exactly how to handle a situation like this. The man shoved forward, trying to intimidate him, but Keanu remained unshaken. With a swift movement, he twisted the man's wrist, forcing him to stumble forward. The entire restaurant watched in stunned silence. "Walk away," Keanu said, his voice dangerously calm. "Before you do something you'll regret." The man snarled but was clearly struggling against Keanu's hold. He twisted his body, trying to break free, but Keanu used his momentum against him, subtly shifting his weight to send the man off balance. He stumbled back, his face red with humiliation and rage. His ego was hurt. He wasn't just angry anymore, he was furious. "You think you can stop me?" he roared. The mother clutched her son tightly, her eyes full of fear. The boy buried his face in her shoulder, but Keanu kept his focus on the threat. The man's hand lunged toward his jacket pocket again, desperate, reckless. Keanu didn't hesitate. In one fluid motion, he stepped forward, grabbed the man's arm, and twisted it behind his back. A pained grunt escaped the man's lips as Keanu firmly restrained him. Then, sirens blared outside. Red and blue lights flashed through the restaurant windows. The police had arrived. Keanu held the man in place as officers rushed in, weapons drawn. "He has something in his pocket," Keanu told them. The cops moved in fast. The nightmare was about to end. The second the officers rushed in, Keanu stepped back, releasing his hold on the man but keeping his stance alert. He had done his part. Now it was time for the authorities to take over. "Hands where I can see them," one of the officers shouted, weapons drawn. The man's eyes darted around in panic. The tough guy act was gone. He had underestimated the situation. He thought he could walk in, scare his family, and walk out. Instead, he was on the verge of being arrested. One officer quickly grabbed his arms and pinned them behind his back, securing him in handcuffs. Another reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black handgun. The entire restaurant gasped. Keanu felt his chest tighten. He had suspected it, but seeing the weapon confirmed just how close this could have been to a tragedy. The officer held up the gun. "You were about to use this in a McDonald's full of people?" he asked, his voice full of controlled anger. The man, still seething, spat on the ground. "She's my wife," he hissed, glaring at the mother. "She doesn't get to leave me." Keanu turned to look at her. Tears were streaming down her face. She clutched her son, who was now trembling. The weight of everything, the fear, the danger, the relief, was finally crashing down on them. "You okay?" Keanu asked gently. She nodded shakily, wiping her tears, but it was clear she had been living in fear for a long time. The officer looked at her. "Ma'am, do you want to press charges?" She hesitated for a moment, then looked down at her son, his innocent face, his big frightened eyes. She had been too scared to stand up for herself before, but she wasn't just protecting herself now. "Yes," she said, her voice steadier than before. "I want to press charges." The officers nodded and began leading the man toward the exit. As they passed Keanu, the man glared at him. "This isn't over," he growled. Keanu met his gaze with calm certainty. "Yeah, it is," he said. The door shut behind them. It was over. But for the mother and child, a new beginning was just starting. As the door shut behind the officers, a heavy silence filled the McDonald's. The moment had passed, but its weight still hung in the air. Keanu turned to the mother and her son. The woman wiped her face with trembling hands, still processing what had just happened. Her little boy clung to her, his small fingers gripping her shirt like she was the only thing keeping him safe. Keanu crouched down to the boy's level, his voice gentle. "You did the right thing, buddy. Telling someone when you're scared. That's brave." The child looked at him with wide eyes, his little lips pressing together. "Are you a superhero?" he whispered. Keanu chuckled softly. "Nah, just a guy who was in the right place at the right time." The mother exhaled deeply, shaking her head. "I don't even know how to thank you." Keanu smiled. "You don't have to. Just keep moving forward." You and your son deserve peace." Her eyes welled with tears again, but this time, they weren't just from fear, they were from relief. A McDonald's employee hesitantly stepped forward. Mr. Reeves," he said, looking both nervous and starstruck. "Your food is, still here, if you want it." Keanu glanced at the tray sitting on the counter, then at the mother and son. "Actually," he said, looking back at the employee, "can you get 2 Happy Meals?" "On me." The worker nodded quickly and rushed off to prepare them. Keanu turned back to the mother. "You guys should eat something. I know it's not exactly a 5-star restaurant, but a little comfort food helps." The mother let out a small, shaky laugh. It was the first real smile she had shown since the ordeal began. "Thank you," she said again, this time with more strength. The Happy Meals arrived, and Keanu handed them over with a warm smile. As the mother and son sat down to eat, a few customers who had been watching the entire thing started clapping. Keanu, looking slightly embarrassed, gave a small nod of appreciation before slipping out of the restaurant. As he stepped onto the sidewalk, he exhaled deeply. Another day, another moment where doing the right thing made all the difference. And that was enough for him.